This video is on describing transformations of functions, and I will describe this after we've done several examples. So I have already described the transformations here, and I've written the parent functions here. So how to tell these things looking at this. Because of this squared, that's how I know the parent function is a quadratic, y equals x squared. So what is the only change that has been made from here to here? And that is this +1 right here. So +1 is sort of in the y position, like the y-intercept position. And so it's going to show a vertical shift, and the positive means up. Positive means up. And then this means we're going to shift up 1 unit. And so over here, it's a vertical shift 1 unit up. Here, because of that squared, that's how I know the parent function is y equals x squared. The change this time is inside the parentheses, and so this is affecting the x. So this is going to be a horizontal shift. Because it's a negative, it means we're going to shift to the right, and the 1 means we're going to shift 1 unit. All right, because this has the squared, that's how I know that the parent function is y equals x squared. So the only change here is this negative in front, and that means that we're having what's called a reflection over the x-axis. Anytime you see a negative in front of your x squared. Here, because this x has no squared, the parent function is y equals x. So we have 2 changes here. We have this 3 and we have this -7. That affects our y-intercept section of this equation, and so it's going to be a vertical shift. The negative means I'm going to shift down, and the 7 means we're going to go 7 units down. Now, because this 3 is in front of the x, that means we're going to have what's called a vertical stretch, which is different than the shift, and it's going to be by a factor of 3. And so we have a vertical stretch by a factor of 3 and the vertical shift 7 units down. Okay, next, because this, we have the absolute value, that means that the parent function is y equals the absolute value of x. So the changes to this are a few things. We have this negative, which means there's a reflection. We have this 2, which means that there's a vertical stretch. We have this 3, which is inside the brackets next to the x. So it's affecting the x, which means it's a horizontal shift. The negative means we're shifting to the right by a factor of 3. And then this is affecting our y-intercept position. So it's going to be a vertical shift. Positive means we're going to go up 5 units. All right, because we have a squared here, the parent function is y equals x squared. The 1/2 means we have a vertical stretch by a factor of 1/2. This 2 is affecting the x, horizontal. So this is a horizontal shift. The negative means we're going to go right 2. And then this one is affecting the y-intercept. So it's a vertical shift. And the negative means down 4. All right, this one, because we have the absolute value brackets, this is the parent function. So the changes are, we have this negative here means we're going to have a reflection over the x-axis. The 4 means we're going to have a vertical stretch by a factor of 4. This 3, that's going to be different because it's next to the x inside the brackets. We're going to have what's called a horizontal, and it's going to do the opposite. It's going to be a shrink, and not by 3, but by 1/3, because anything horizontal tends to be the opposite. And then this is in the y-intercept position, so it's going to be a vertical shift, and it's going to go down 8 because of that negative right there. All right, here, because of that squared, that's how we know the parent function is y equals x squared. This 1/5 is a vertical shrink. Since it's a fraction, I'm going to call it a shrink. And then here, the -4 is going to be in the y-intercept position, so a vertical shift, and the negative means I'm going to go down 4. Because this one has the squared, that's how I know the parent function is y equals x squared. So the things happening here are, we're going to have a vertical stretch by a factor of 3. This, because it's affecting the x, it's going to be a horizontal shift. And because it's a positive, we're going to go left 2. And then this one is going to be affecting the y-intercept, so it's a vertical shift. And because it's a positive, it's going to go up 1. All right, we have the squared, which means the parent function is y equals x squared. So that negative means we have a reflection. That 4 means we have a vertical stretch. This plus 1 is going to affect the x, so it's going to be a horizontal shift, and the positive means we're going to go to the left 1. And then this negative 5 is affecting the y-intercept, so a vertical shift, and the negative means go down 5. Here, because we have a squared, that means this is y equals x squared. We have a reflection. That 2 means a vertical stretch, and then this 5 affects the y-intercept, so it's going to be a vertical shift, and then the positive means up 5 unit. Since there's a squared here, we're going to have y equals x squared as the parent function. That 1/2 means we're going to have a vertical shrink by 1/2 because this is inside the parentheses. It's affecting the x, so we're going to have a horizontal shift, and the negative means we're going to go right 1. Now how to do the reverse. If this is your parent function and this is what we are going to do to change it, what would the equation be? So you can either put f of x or you can put y. Both of them are correct. I'm just going to stick with the f of x equals, and we're going to start with x. A vertical stretch by a factor of 2 means you want to multiply this by 2. And then followed by a translation 1 unit up means we're going to go plus 1. Next, if I start out with f of x equals x, we're going to go 3 units down. So that's going to be a minus 3, followed by a vertical shrink by a factor of 1/3. So that means I want the 1/3 in front, and then I'm going to go 3 units down. So that'll be a minus 3. Next is f of x is equal to, and we're going to have the absolute value of x. We're going to translate 2 units to the right. So that means that I want to go minus 2. So it's going to be x minus 2, followed by a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2. And that's going to actually be times 1/2 because we do the opposite, and it's going to be in front of x. So I'm going to have my absolute value, 1/2 x minus 2 is going to be the answer to this one. Next is this one. And because we're going to have a reflection, that means we need a negative. Followed by a translation 3 units to the right. That means it's going to be x minus 3 to go to the right. So we're going to have f of x equals negative x minus 3, and that is the final answer. Next, we're going to have a 2 units down translation, so that's going to be minus 2, and then we're going to go 6 units to the left, so that's going to be x plus 6. Here, we're going to say f of x equals, and then we're going to put in the parentheses x plus 6 squared, and then we're going to translate 2 units down, so we'll say minus 2. Next is going to be a vertical stretch by a factor of 2, so that means we're going to multiply times 2 in the front. We're going to have a reflection, that means we need it to be a negative. We're going to have a vertical translation 5 units up, so that means we're going to have a plus 5. So f of x equals, we're going to do the reflection, that's this one, vertical stretch by 2, so 2 is going to go there, and then we can put our x squared, and then we're going to go 5 units up. This one, vertical shrink by 1/2, so we're going to have times 1/2 in the front, and then a translation 1 unit to the right. That means that we're going to have a x minus 1. So it's going to go f of x equals, we're going to say 1/2 x minus 1, close parentheses, squared. And that'll be our answer for this one. And then finally, we're going to do this one, which says there's a horizontal translation 1 unit left. So that's going to be x plus 1, followed by a vertical stretch by a factor of 4 and a reflection. So we're going to have a times negative 4 up in front, and then a vertical translation 5 units down. So that's going to be minus 5. So we're going to have f of x equals, and then we're going to go negative 4, that's my reflection and vertical stretch, and then here we're going to have x plus 1 squared, and then minus 5. And we're going to not do this one because it's a special case.